Hi, I'm Shahin from Motocorsa, and congratulations on the purchase of your Ducati DesertX. Today we're going to go over some of the basics of your motorcycle, plus, very importantly, the electronic dashboard and how to use some of its basic features so that you can have a better experience throughout your ownership. All right, first things first. So you just got your bike and you're probably dying to break it in. So what I would suggest is, first things, make an appointment at your local certified Ducati dealership service so that they can put you in for your first service, which is at 1,000 kilometers, so roughly 620 miles. The bike will have a light that will tell you when the service is due as you get closer and closer to it, but until then, ride it fairly normal. Don't redline it, try not to drone too much in the same gear. Shift gear is often up and down so the bike learns and is set up for success so that you have a nice long ownership process with it. But until then, have fun, ride it, enjoy it. Remember that you have brand new tires on there, so be gentle the first 40 or 50 miles of the bike and break the tires in slowly, and then kind of go from there. Let's talk about some of the cool features of this bike, starting with my favorites. Ducati did a couple of neat things, including adjustable foot levers, both on the brake and on the shifter side. So I'm going to show you the brake side first. Here's a cool thing. You can either choose to stand up or sit down on this bike based on the terrain that you're riding, and all you have to do is pull on this and twist it. This is in the up position. This will allow you to stand up on the bike and be able to articulate your foot without being in an awkward position, or you pull it out, twist it again, and now it is in the lower position. A couple of millimeters lower so you can sit comfortably, and when you tend to sit down, your feet kind of point down anyway, so a lot easier to reach. Also makes it easier if you have big off-road boots like I like to wear and you don't have to kind of search for anything. It's nice and big. The pegs themselves are nice and wide, so it's a good spot to stand in. They have nice rubber inserts that are really easy to remove. You just pull them out of there, and just like that. You can have nice toothy grippy pegs on there that you don't have to worry about slipping off of, especially on rainy, cold days like we have today. And just like on the brake side, on the shifter side, you have something similar. There's two little holes on the shift lever that'll allow you to adjust the lever to whether you're wearing a smaller, thinner street boots versus off-road boots. I tend to ride this bike with my off-road boots, just in case I ever want to go off the beaten path on a whim. And so I tend to have mine adjusted on the higher side, which is incidentally the lower hole. So if you put on the lower hole, it'll sit slightly higher by a couple of millimeters and allow you to have your plenty of space for your boots to slip in and out of here so you can upshift the bike. Speaking of upshifts and downshifts, the DesertX comes equipped standard with Ducati's quick shift program. So you can basically maintain your throttle up and just upshift it, and then as you're downshifting, throttle down, and it'll auto rev match for you. And what's cool is you can use that in all 6 modes of the motorcycle, and I'll show you that later. Okay, we're gonna go over the button layout on the handlebar of your Ducati DesertX. Now, it's always a good idea to follow along on your owner's manual, as there's gonna be a lot more information on there, as this tutorial is gonna be kind of just topical and quick. So on the right side, you have 3 buttons. Top one is multifunctional. It has, as you can see, a little handlebar with little arrows going over it. This is actually for the optional Ducati heated grips. If you press this once, you'll see there's a little icon that shows up on the right side of the dash. It's basically letting you know that the heated grips are off. If you press it again, it goes to on, 1 arrow, which means low, 2 arrows medium, 3 arrows high, and then if you press it again, you toggle it back to off. So that is for your optional heated grips that you can have installed at your local Ducati dealership. Next button, the fun button, is actually to get your ignition going. If you want to turn the bike off, you have your emergency shut-off switch where you just bring this down. It covers the on and off switch, and that way the bike turns off. Obviously, you can use the actual key on the bike to do that as well. And then if you push it all the way up and press this button for a couple of seconds, the bike comes alive and it is time to party. We're not going to do that in here since we're indoors and we want to make sure we're breathing pretty clean air. The third button, it's in the bottom. It's for the headlight switch. Now the bike comes with automatic headlights which turn on and off based on the amount of light outside. The bike does have a sensor on there and it'll turn the lights on and off for you. You can press this button once and turn the daytime running lamps on or off. You can see on the dashboard on the bottom left, there's a little green icon, which is a headlight. If that green icon is on, it means your daytime running lamps are on. If it's off, it means they are off and your headlight will be on outside. If the bike is running, the headlights turn on. If the bike is not running, it doesn't waste energy and do that. Now, if you press that button, you have taken away the automatic ability to turn that function on and off. You will have to go through the menu and turn it on and off later on if you want to leave it on automatic. I tend to forget, so I just leave it on automatic, and I don't tend to mess with this thing. Now, the other function of the switch is if you get the Ducati Performance running lights, the fog lights essentially, you can press this down for about 2 seconds and it'll turn those on. And again, if you want to turn them off, you hold down for about 2 seconds and it'll turn them off. My bike is not equipped with that, so can't really show it to you, but if you have that on there, some people don't really know how to do it properly and they always ask us, hey, how do I turn these on and off? You just hold this down for about 2 or 3 seconds and your fog lights will turn on, and then if you want to turn them off again, you hold it in for about 2 seconds and it'll turn off. Let's move to the left side. All right. Let's go to the fun side of things, the left handlebar. Actually, everything's fun on this bike, but the left handlebar's got a little more button numbers to kind of go over, so we'll make it as simple as possible. We'll start from the very top or the front of it. Your little index finger is gonna have a little trigger button here, and that is for passing people. If you wanna pass them, you just pull it in, and you can see in the background, the bike's flashing everybody. That's a good way to let people know you're coming. Now, if you want to put the high beams on and not deal with anything else, just leave them on. You same exact trigger. Instead of pulling in on there, you're going to push your finger behind it and just click forward, and the high beams will be on until you pull back on it and turn it off again. Next, after that, you've got the hazards. That's right, nice little button. Just press it down and all 4 turn signals will turn on for hazard purposes. Turn that off. Above that, there's a little button called ABS. Now, the ABS button will only work on enduro and rally mode. If you try to use it while we're, for instance, in touring mode right now, the bike will say that it is not able to do that. So the bike's not running right now, but if it was running, it will tell you that this function is not available while in this particular riding mode. So again, you can only turn the ABS on and off on the run, on the fly rather, while you are in enduro or rally mode. You can adjust your ABS settings permanently on each mode through the user's menu, and I will go over that in depth here in a little bit. Next button is your traction control button. It's one of my favorite features on this bike. If you're having to ride between the off-road areas before you go exploring, you gotta do a little bit of highway riding, you can turn your traction control on by pressing that button. You'll see on the dash a little green symbol came on for the actual cruise control. I think I called it traction control earlier, but I meant cruise control. And if you want to turn it off again, you press the same button. So while it's on, if you want to set it while you're at a certain speed, you just press the set button and it'll pick the speed up for you. You'll see that underneath the little green symbol for cruise control, there is a grayed out miles per hour sign right now. Again, while the bike is running, if you're on the highway, let's say at 55 miles an hour, when you press that, it'll actually indicate 55 on there. And then every time you press plus or minus, it'll go up and down 1 mile an hour or kilometers per hour, depending on where you're at and which one you're using. If you pull in the front brake, clutch, rear brake, it'll actually shut the cruise control off for you as well. And then if you want to reset, you can just, or resume rather, you can just hit the RES button at the top and it'll take you back to the last speed that the bike was going on cruise control. Below that, you've got the turn signal, left and right buttons here, and you can press it in to cancel it. Just pretty standard motorcycle fare on this one. The bike does have automatic turn signal cancellation, and I'll go over how you can turn that on and off. And then below all that is just your horn. You just press it once and it works. The big button that we're going to be going over a lot, and as I go over the menus, you'll see me using them a lot, is this set here. It's your mode button, your enter button, and your up and down button that you can scroll through menus. If you want to select the riding mode on this bike, you can do that while you're on the fly by pressing this button down for a couple of seconds, and now the screen changes to your mode selection. Now, you can go through and I'll show you how and change every mode to your liking, but out of the box it's set up pretty well, and you can just scroll up or down to whichever one you want to go to, and it's sort of color coded for different riding. So rally is yellow, enduro is brown, wet is blue, touring is white, urban is kind of grayish, and then sport is red because Ducati. And you can just select either one of those while you're riding. If the bike's throttle is on when you select one, it'll ask you to close the throttle so that you can modulate the power gently without being sort of like put from 80 horsepower to 111 horsepower, from low to high power. So select the one you want, press it in, and you're good to go on that one. Okay, let's talk about the dash of this motorcycle. You have this beautiful, colorful TFT dash, and there's a lot of information on there, and we're gonna try and simplify it for this tutorial. So if you look at the dash, there is the top side menus that you can scroll over, and then if you press the down button down for a couple of seconds, it'll go to the bottom, and you can look at things like the trip time, trip to, consumption, total amount of mileage, what kind of range you have left on your tank. As you can see, I'm running mine pretty low right now, and then trip 1. Now, trip 1 is where you're going to average out things like the average consumption for that trip, average speed, and the trip time for that. If you go to trip 1 and hit enter, it'll ask you if you want to reset this. If you say yes, it'll zero all that out. So now trip 1 is 0, consumption is 0, speed is 0, and trip 1 time is 0. Trip 2 still shows how much you'd ridden. So if you're a long distance touring person and want to kind of keep an eye on how many miles you've done in that day per se, it's a good spot to make sure that is being collected on trip 2, and then you can have your trip 1 reset after every gas stop, so you can kind of get an idea of what kind of consumption you're getting, so you can set your day accordingly. So kind of neat that you can go through that on here. If you want to see your immediate consumption, you go to consumption here, and then obviously the total miles and back to how much range you have in your tank. If you want to get out of this, you press the up button, hold it for a couple of seconds, and now you see the up menu is highlighted. Now my phone is not currently Bluetooth on this motorcycle, so it's not showing us things like the music, phone, or turn by turn, but we'll go over that here in a second. But for time being, let's go through the settings menu. All right, once you're in the settings menu, you can scroll up or down and go through all of the different things that you can change on the motorcycle. Obviously you can exit at any time you want, but let's go back in here and kind of see what we have. The first thing that gets highlighted is the riding mode. This is where we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of changing things on the motorcycle. I'm just gonna really show you one of them. When you press riding mode, you're gonna see that you can change urban mode, sport mode. You can change everything back to default if you don't like how the bike is set up for you, and kind of going up from there, you've got your rally, enduro, wet, and touring as well. So 6 total riding modes on this bike. Let's go to touring as an example. So we're gonna hit enter, and now you can see it highlights things as we change it. So we can change the power, ABS, traction control, wheelie control, engine braking, quick shift, and then the info mode and what you wanted to show you on the actual info. If you don't like what you've done or you want it to end up back to factory default, just press the default button, it'll change it back for you. So on the power mode, if you press enter, you will see that you have high, full, and medium and low. That's right, this bike has 4 different power modes on there, and they're all going to be relevant to your riding style or what you like to do. I personally really like this bike's high power or full power for touring, so I'll leave it on high and go back. ABS, you've got 3 different ABS modes. One tends to be for what I would say off-road riding, so it turns off rear ABS. 2 is a little more stable, and 3 is just really great for super rainy instances. So for touring, I'll leave it on 2, back. Traction control, you have 8 different modes on this one, all the way to off. Again, on touring mode, I'm not really trying to get the bike to be super duper aggressive or off-roady, so I'll probably put it on, I'll say maybe like 3 for me, because I'm a little bit more performance and stability. Go back. Wheelie control. Ducatis typically have anywhere from 4 to 8 different levels of wheelie control. This one has 4. Again, we're on touring mode here, so I will probably go a little more conservative, put it on 3. Engine brake. So you can see the higher the number, the less engine brake you have. So if you are the kind of person that likes to slow the bike down just using the gears, bring it on 1. It'll really, really slow the bike down quite a bit with the engine braking. On touring mode, I tend to leave it right in the middle. And then the quick shift, so pretty simple. You have quick shift for up and down or off. I've gotten really used to using the quick shift. It's super smooth on this motorcycle, and I really enjoy using it, especially when I'm off-roading the bike. I can just concentrate on my lines and not really worry about playing with the clutch too much, although the clutch will still come on handy. But if you just want to do quick ups and down shifts, you can just leave it on. And then the info mode, this is where you can decide whether you want to do full all the info or rally mode, where it's got sort of a segmented bit of info that we'll go over later on. We're on touring mode, so I kind of want to see all the information. I'll leave it on full, back. And then again, if you don't like what you've done here, it's default, and it's restored back to its factory settings, just like that. Pretty easy, and you can do that on every single one of these. So you have 4 different options. And again, you can go to default on each one of these modes if you have only worked on one of them, or you can go just to factory default on everything on the main riding mode menu, and it'll just change everything right back for you. I'm not gonna do that here because I've spent a little bit of time messing with my bike. All right, let's go to the next one. Riding mode, if you scroll down, you will notice that we're on info display. Now this lets you kind of go through every single one of the displays that's on the info and really get granular with this thing. So for instance, if you want the total version, you can kind of tell it like, I want all this stuff on there, and it'll let you get super duper granular. Again, you can go on here and change every single one of these things. I would take your time and just really get familiar with this one, and don't be shy about getting that owner's manual open and spend a little bit of time on it for this one. Fuel indicator, you can decide whether you want to have a level, which is just a bar, or the actual range, which is a number. What's cool with this bike, if you noticed, on the lower portion of the full dash, you're going to have the range anyways. So I tend to leave it on level so I can have both if I want to. Daytime running lamps. If you remember earlier when I showed you that button on the right side of the handlebar, if you press the light switch on that one, it'll take it from auto to manual automatically. So just put auto back on, and the next time you turn the bike back on, it'll just automatically turn the lights on and off depending on what kind of ambient lighting you have outside. Display setup. Now this one you can kind of play with 2 different things. There's the themes, which is going to be, you know, whether you want it light or dark. This is going to be, I leave it on auto because if it's bright out, it'll make the background of the dash white or lighter. And then if it's dark outside, it tends to make it darker so it's easier on your eyes. If you leave it on auto, it'll just switch back and forth. If you have a preference of one over the other, just go ahead and select it here. And then it'll just put you back on back again. Brightness. Depending on how you like it, if you want it brighter or darker, you can kind of see if I put it on 20%, it gets it nice and dark. So if you tend to be riding at night a lot and you've got more sensitive eyes, it's good to be able to change it. I tend to like a fairly bright background, so I put it on 80. And then back. Pin. You can change your pin on this bike, but because it is a bike with an actual physical key on there, I don't really recommend you doing that. It allows your service department to get into the bike and reset things if they need to without having to ask you over and over again for the pin. But if you feel like you want to change it, you can get in here and put a 4-digit numerical pin that you should write down somewhere and save just in case. Date and time is pretty standard. You can set the date or date format and time format. The US models have the date format as, let's see actually how they have it set up. I'm curious. Yep, day, month, year. And then the time you can set on here as well. I have mine on 24-hour format. If you want to set it, you go in, you press enter, and you go up and down to set the hour and the minutes. And then when you're done with it, you can just go back. If you don't like the 24-hour setup like I do, you can just go in here and add 12-hour setup. So, you know, 5 p.m. will just show as 5 instead of 1700 like I like to look at. Go back here. Tire calibration comes in handy if you're changing your tires into a much bigger, meatier off-road tire. It allows you to, while the bike is running and in gear, to figure out where you're at, so your traction control and basically the entire IMU on the bike can work properly on the bike without giving you any errors. Bluetooth, okay, so this is an interesting one. This is only available as an option. These bikes do not actually have a Bluetooth connectivity module on them. You have to get the Ducati Multimedia hardware installed at your local Ducati dealership so that then you can connect your phone via Bluetooth on there. I would highly recommend you download the Ducati Link free app, whether you have an iOS or Android type phone, so that you can actually speak to the bike. If you want to use the navigation that is built into the system of the motorcycle, it's an additional charge for that as well that you can get at your local Ducati dealership, and that will allow you to leave your phone in your pocket and follow the directions on the actual dash on the motorcycle. It's super neat. It doesn't show you a map. It does show you arrows and amount of miles that you, or kilometers for instance, before you have to make turns and what to look forward to next. So pretty neat. I will go over that here in a second. Turn indicators, again, auto on and off if you want, or manual on and off. I like the auto on and off because once I've made my turn, a couple of seconds later, the turn signal turns off and I don't have to think about it because I'm lazy. Language, pretty simple. You can pick the language that works best for you. I speak English, so English for me. And units is going to be for speed, miles versus kilometers, temperature, Fahrenheit versus Celsius, and consumption will be miles per gallon US, miles per gallon UK, and then kilometers as well. And then again, you can back to default if you don't like what you've done on this one. Tripmaster Precision. This bike has a really interesting thing where you can actually drop sort of like cookie crumbs or breadcrumbs, I guess, if you're out there riding around, and you can get it to 0.1 or a hundredth of a mile if you want to, and I just leave it at 0.1. Info is going to be where it tells you where your battery is. You can see my battery is low right now because I've just had this on for a while, but I've got it connected to a charger so it'll get charged up really quickly. And exits. Let's go over the Bluetooth connectivity and how you can use the actual maps on this motorcycle. It's a really neat hidden feature that doesn't come standard, but we'll go over it so that you can really use all this motorcycle's really great features. All right, let's cover one of my favorite subjects and probably one of the most frequently asked questions. How do you navigate while you're out there adventuring on your favorite DesertX? Well, there are probably 4 options. 1, good old-fashioned map. Can't go wrong with it. It'll never break down on you. It's always a good idea to carry one of those anyways, just to kind of be able to figure out where you're going. Number 2, fairly common nowadays, is to use your own phone, and you can mount your phone on the somewhere on the handlebar of the bike, or in this case for the DesertX, there are multiple different options on mounts if you want to put it directly over where the dashboard is. I currently have one by Evotech, but Ducati also makes a beautiful one that you can use, which sets, puts me to number 3. Number 3 is Ducati's own mount, which allows you to use a actual dedicated GPS unit. The Ducati Performance one is beautiful. I've seen it in use. It's very slick, lots of information on there, and it gets mounted directly over the dash here, so it's right in your line of vision. The only problem with using only your phone, especially mounting it to the handlebar and the dash of the bike, is that unless you can figure out a way of dampening it, and there's a couple of companies now that make systems that allow the vibrations of the bike not to destroy your phone, you will run into that issue. I've known a lot of people who have lost their phone's ability to do a couple of things because they're mounting it directly onto their bike, and all the bumps and vibrations from the bike are going directly into the phone and just ruining the cameras and otherwise fairly fragile phone. So this leads me to number 4. There's a really cool option that allows you to see turn by turn right on the dash itself, and you can leave your phone in your pocket. This 4th option also allows you to see things like phone calls and music selection right here on the dash. So it's kind of neat, and I will go over that here in a second. All right, so you want to use the dash to be able to see where you're going. There are a couple of things you have to do. Number 1 is to go to your local Ducati dealership and ask for the DesertX Multimedia Connection tool. This multimedia connection tool will allow you to have a Bluetooth connection from your phone to the bike. As you can see, my phone is currently paired to the bike. There's a little blue symbol on the top left of the dash, and it lets you know that there's a phone there, and I've got pretty decent connection right now. The other thing that you have to do is on your phone, download the Ducati Link app. Put it right there so you can see it. Right there, Ducati Link. That's free, but you also have to buy the turn-by-turn through your dealership's price. So once you do these 3 things, so you're going to get the multimedia connection, you're going to get the turn-by-turn app, and then you're going to download the Ducati Link app. You go into the Ducati Link app, and see it says the bike was connected on there. It even knows what kind of bike it is. It's pretty great when they connect the Ducati multimedia connector. It is sold to the VIN of your bike, so it'll automatically know exactly what you have on there. On here, you can have all kinds of neat things like see what's going on around the world with other people riding and what they're doing. But my favorite part is you can plan a ride. So you hit the little plan button, and it's going to think for a second, and it's going to ask you, where do you want to go? All right, so once you're there, you're going to tell it where you want to go. Let's go to one of our recent places. Let's go to Ducati North America. It's going to see where you're at currently. It's going to draw you a little line. You're going to tell it to go. In this case, I'm going to just start navigation only. You can record the itinerary so you can share it later on, but start navigation. And once it starts here, you'll see on the screen, now it tells us where to go. It's kind of neat. If you have the headset connected to your phone or to the bike as well, you can have it on voice. I have found for my personal use that it's really great with the voice directions. It does a really, really good job and concise and to the point of turn left, turn right, and so many, you know, feet or miles or yards you're gonna go this direction. So I really, really like this feature because it kind of allows me to just put my phone away. It's in my pocket, I don't have to look at it anymore, and I've got all the directions I need here. Some people like to look at a map, and so that takes away that option, and you might be better off with an actual GPS unit, but I really like how clean this is. And when you're riding the bike, all the information you want is going to be right on the dash here. You're gonna have your rev count, your gear, how fast you're going, how much fuel you have on the bike, what kind of temperature you have. So every bit of information you need is gonna be on the dash still. And this is one of my favorite solutions that I've ever seen on this bike, and it really adds a lot of value in my eyes in that I can just keep it clean and tidy and just use this for my regular travels. I am sure Ducati will update this as time goes on and allow for more usages, but I'm really impressed with it, and this kind of allows me to use my phone the way I want to use it and still have this here. So if you have any more questions on this one, get in your owner's manual. I believe it starts in about page 135, I think. I could be wrong, could be page 145, but don't be shy, look at that one, and if you have any questions, give us a buzz and we'll try and walk you through it. So really neat little feature, and I've been using it regularly, and I'm excited to see how you guys use it. Couple of PSA items that bear a little bit of repeating. This bike comes from the factory with a lithium-ion battery. Now, those are nice and light, but what they don't like is if you play with all the electronics while the bike is off. So I would highly suggest getting a trickle charger that is made for a lithium-ion battery. You can pick those up at just about any motorcycle shop and plug it in if you're not using it for a long time, or especially if you're going to be playing with all the electronics that we're going over here. Give it a plug-in. It's much safer than having to deal with a dead battery later on. The other thing to think about as well is off-road protection. If you're going to be taking this thing out a lot and playing with it, these bikes come with no crash guards or anything like them from the factory. What's great is that there's a lot of companies that are now stepping up and making really good protection for you. Obviously, Ducati performance parts are preferred. They're really easy to install, and they're great, and they're carried by most of your dealerships, are pretty easy to get to. I have a little bit different setup on mine as I work with different companies, but again, always a smart idea to make sure you have that kind of thing on your motorcycle so that you can take it out with confidence and not worry about damaging things like this beautiful metal tank on the motorcycle. Another thing, always refer to your owner's manual. The bike that you bought is brand new, so it should come with an owner's manual, 2 keys, just in case you lose one of them, but always refer to that. You got a lot of information on there, and it can take a lot of time to do it, which is why we do these videos, to keep things simple for you, but that owner's manual is like the Bible. It's phenomenal. It has a lot of good stuff in there for you. Thank you for following along with this tutorial on your DesertX. If you have any questions, don't be shy to call us at the shop at 503-292-7488, and we can go over other things with you as they come up for you.